It's rare that I find somebody who, like me, is building a national platform, and this is a man who's built a national platform in estate planning. Estate planning is often a localized business, but our guest today has built a YouTube channel and a network of attorneys across the country, helping families do the proper estate planning and the work that's needed ahead of time. Paul, thank you so much for joining us from America's Estate Planning Lawyers. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here. Glad we were able to connect a few days ago, and what do you know, here we are.
Now, you're in Louisiana. My college roommate was from Metairie, so I know people from Louisiana are proud of the state. But your business is a little different, and then you've taken on a national focus or national platform. Explain what that is.
Yeah, so really the long version is when I was 8 years old, I inherited a few shares of stock from my grandmother. And so that enabled me to go to college, go to law school. After law school, earned my master's degree in tax law from Boston University's law school. I just felt like, I thought mistakenly that everybody around me had a little bit of an inheritance that could pay for their college and their law school. But then I realized I was, I gave great thanks to my grandmother. So it had a big impact on me. And so once I finished law school and earned my master's in tax law, I jumped in. I've been an estate planning lawyer for 33 years. Yep, you mentioned, Bill, I started a YouTube channel about 8 years ago just to answer some questions in front of a camera. It kind of took off, and we started getting some requests from all over the country, people wanting me to help them get and keep their estate legal affairs in order. So we established a national network of what we call co-counsel lawyers, so that to comply with all the rules of professional responsibility. So yeah, we can help people around the country, and our main business is just helping that ordinary family put things in place. So for example, when the first spouse dies, things are easy for the surviving spouse. When the surviving spouse dies, it's all in place typically for the children to inherit without difficulty and delay and expense and unnecessary taxes. So that's been our business, and it's been really fascinating along the way.
So if I heard you right, you're saying your typical customer is an ordinary family, meaning not doing particularly large or national estates, but you're doing estates all across the country for more common families. Is that a way to put it?
Yeah, common. I mean, usually, the families or the couples that we work with, they're often about to be retired or are retired. They have their IRAs that they rolled over from their 401k plan at work. They have some property. They have a home always. Sometimes they own some real estate, sometimes in their name, sometimes in LLCs, usually has some other investments. So, from a net worth standpoint, with real estate values taken off and with, appreciation and investments and retirement savings, a lot of our clients are in that kind of $2 to $5 million net worth kind of range, but it's really all over the map.
I know that your goal is to build the barn to put the cows in before there's a problem, but in reality, as an attorney, you must get phone calls from people where the cows got out and then close the door. What are the most common problems people make in failing to an estate plan that they try to rectify after the fact that maybe had they planned, they would have avoided?
Yeah. My favorite example is when a father died and he had 4 children. And one of the children called me right after the father died, and he said, "Look, Paul, I think I'm going to have some trouble." What happened was all 4 children had to have their own security guard at Dad's funeral, and it got worse from there. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot of mistakes made. It's sometimes mistakes are made, quite frankly, on the legal document side, either not having things clearly or not having things updated. Sometimes there's mistakes on the family communication or lack of communication among family members. It's great for Dad to put his desires in his will and trust, but it's another thing to have a conversation with the children and say, "Hey kids, this is not only what I did, but this is why I did it. This is why I left my home to your sister. This is why I left these things to my grandchildren." So oftentimes I'd say that's probably the biggest mistake, is a lack of communication. And then a parent dies and just children see words on paper and they're like, "Why? We don't understand it. We don't like it. We're going to cause problems," unfortunately. So lots of errors can be made in estate planning. Sometimes errors are made by the parents. Sometimes errors are made by lawyers. Sometimes long-standing sibling relationships cause issues. So it's a complex area. and that's why I guess we have lawyers to try to help to minimize these problems.
One of the common challenges I see in my real estate practice is people get an estate plan, which I think it was like a safe deposit box, but they don't put the assets in the plan. It's kind of like buying a great safe deposit box, not putting your gold coins in the box, and you wonder why you get robbed. In California, we do have a process where perhaps you can add it in after the fact. It's called the Higsted petition. Are there similar provisions in other states, or if you don't fund the estate plan right away, perhaps are you at risk?
Yeah, funding is the key. People say, what is funding? Some people mistakenly believe that if I just have a trust, my family will avoid this court and attorney involved probate process when I die, because the concept is, instead of keeping things in your name and having a will direct where they go when you die, which requires the probate because there are assets in your name that are frozen when you die, the idea is, instead of that, create your living trust. Assets that are titled in the name of a living trust when you die don't have to go through that court and attorney involved process. You designate a successor trustee who can sell assets, transfer assets to the heirs outside of the court involvement. Most people think mistakenly that if they just have a trust, that solves the avoid probate problem, but it's really a two-step process. Create your trust, and then yes, John Doe needs to retitle his home, for example, or his commercial property or his rental property from John Doe to John Doe as trustee of the John Doe Living Trust. So if that asset is still in John Doe's name when he dies, there's going to be a probate. Yes, John may have what's called a pour-over will directing that asset go through the probate to the trust, but it still requires the probate. So yeah, it's that combination of creating the trust and then funding or retitling assets so that they're already in the trust when you pass away.
I know that some attorneys don't get involved in the funding for various reasons. Others do, and actually will follow up and verify that it has been funded. Where do you fall out on that? Of course, you work in different states, but in general, where do you fall out on that process?
Yeah, good question. People own different types of assets. This is kind of a real estate YouTube channel we're on here. So let me emphasize the real estate. Yeah, when someone owns real estate and they create their trust, yeah, we do all of the paperwork to transfer that property from their name to their trust. We make sure it all gets recorded in the county. If they own property inside of an LLC, then it's important to transfer their LLC to their trust. So yeah, we handle all of that. And there's some companies around the country who that's their business, and we use those companies often, and they're in the business of just helping people transfer property from their name to their trust. So it's hard for the individual consumer who just doesn't routinely deal with transfers of properties and recordings in counties. It's hard for the consumer. Estate planning is hard enough. Then if you give them that homework to fund their trust completely, it often doesn't get done. So it's fairly easy for attorneys to get involved and get that done. So, yep, we do it.
I think as realtors, those of you listening, this is a chance for you to provide some extra value, because the customer is told it's been funded. The attorney gives them copies of deeds, but we have access to usually public records online, and we can verify it and send the customer, hey, by the way, I see that your property got deeded into trust. Here's a copy of it for whatever it's worth. I think that's a way to add some value.
No question. I'm glad you brought that up. I've never really thought of it that way, but if I look at a similar industry, the financial services industry, when we create a trust for someone who has a brokerage account at a brokerage firm, they get their financial advisor to help them retitle that financial account, transfer that stock account from their name to their trust. Why wouldn't real estate agents do the same? Because those real estate agents can be experts in their area, and yes, they can assist, and they can tell their clients, hey, if you create a trust, or if you ever have a need where your real estate needs to be retitled, let me know and I'll do what I can to help. I think clients would really value that help from their agents.
I remember having one of these conversations one day, and I thought to myself, I have this one securities account. And I think about it, said my name and my wife's name is not in the trust. And I literally hung up and switched over. So these are things we all need to follow up on. And I think that helping customers is helping customers, and we want to seek to be of assistance. On a similar note, I know that attorneys have different positions on storing documents. Some, My father was an attorney years ago, old style attorney. They had like a safe room, and they used to keep the wills. This is before estate planning was as common. They had like a fireproof safe room that they kept the wills in for their customers. And nowadays, there are attorneys who do want to keep the documents for customers, attorneys that don't. There are attorneys who have like electronic versions that provide access. Where do you stand on that, and what do you think best serves your customers?
Yeah, good point. I remember back in the day, 30 something years ago, I worked for a lawyer, and every time a client would come in and sign their will, it was my job to take that will and bring it down to the law firm's safe deposit box. And I would just keep shoving and shoving and shoving wills into that safe deposit box. But times have changed a little bit. We have more technology, but in estate planning and with wills especially, wet signatures on hard copies are the standard. In fact, if someone has a will and they die and no one can find their original will, then it's presumed that the person who wrote the will and subsequently died, it's presumed that they destroyed the will with the intent to revoke it. So it's a mess when someone has a will and we need to use it and you can't find it. All you have is a photocopy. You have to overcome this presumption that they destroyed it with the intent to revoke it. So kind of ours, and I think most attorneys, we have the typical, once people sign all of their estate documents, we have the estate planning portfolio and we make sure it all gets there. We do add we do give all of our clients a secure online portal. And once they sign everything, they upload or we upload their documents to their online portal, along with all of their real estate information and other information a executor or a successor trustee may need if they pass away. The idea is, look, let's make sure at least there's a secure online place where everything that someone may need is there. And then, but also it's important to secure those original documents as well. So we don't keep those. We just, have the client store all of their originals in a safe place. Some people just store it in their home. Some people use safe deposit boxes. I'd say the majority probably keep it in their home these days. But that's where we stand.
Yeah, we've had 3 banks cancel our safe deposit box here. So, and they keep closing branches. We keep bringing out places to keep those documents. So we've had to change that process. And I think what I hear you saying is ideally you have the wet signature. It's great to have an online version and as secure as possible. It's great, but there's no comparison. If there's an argument or dispute or objection, the wet signature is going to have a lot more merit.
Yeah, and some third parties who want to see a durable power of attorney, they want to see the original with the little raised notary seal. Every third party has their own issues with whether they'll accept a photocopy versus an original. So here we are in 2024, but it is important that people do keep their originals in a safe place and have access to them.
It always makes me funny. The title companies here in California want a certified copy of letters when there's a probate,
right?
Which means, like you say, raised letters and a special stamp. But I always tell them, well, you can go online and verify it yourself. You don't need me. You can go to the county website, pull it up, and see with your own eyes. There's the document. It'd be much easier for me to forge the raised signature. That's easy to do. Getting on the county website would be very hard to do. But somehow title companies have laws written in 1950, and they just don't want to give those up, I think.
Yeah, and that's because there's so many nuances. That's why it's important that there are people like yourselves who have, you dug deep into the California probate rules and you understand this stuff. Just as an example, you mentioned letters. Oftentimes, a parent will die and a child will go to the bank and the bank or a title company will say, no, you need these letters testamentary or letters of administration. And so they mistakenly think that, and they'll tell people, you need to go to a lawyer to get these letters. So they mistakenly think I need to write a letter because these letters testamentary have the name letter in it. But it has nothing to do with the attorney writing a letter. It's a document produced by a court. So yeah, to sort through it, consumers really need to deal with people who have experience in this whole probate estate settlement issue to get things done.
We can switch just a little bit to kind of entrepreneurship. You've built an amazing YouTube platform. Did you set out to do that? At what time did this go from was this your plan all along, or was it something you started and it became this monster? How'd that happen?
Yeah, it became a monster. I started it 8 years ago, and the only reason I started it was because I kept having to answer the same questions over and over again. Paul, what's a probate? Paul, what are letters testamentary? Paul, what does an executor do? Paul, what's an executor's job? Paul, what are my rights as a someone who was named in a will? Paul, what's the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? Finally, I said, you know what? I'm just going to grab my phone and make some videos. And if someone calls me and asks me a question, I'll just send them a copy of my video, which will be kind of well thought out, maybe 5 minutes. I won't have to spend 5 minutes explaining things. So I started making a few videos, and I remember, or not, I don't remember, but as I look back on it, I see that I didn't even know what a subscriber was at the time. But after only 1 year, I had 7 subscribers, and I think my mother was one, and my kids were subscribers, and so that was it. And I didn't know what a subscriber was, but I just kept making the videos, and occasionally people would get in touch with me. Paul, I watched this video, and this really helped me and kind of prepared me to have a conversation with you. And that just gradually built up, and then really maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it kind of took off. I remember one weekend saying, "Oh my goodness, this a lot of people are watching this thing." And then I had fun with it. And you're a good speaker, Bill. I know you have fun putting on your shows here. I'm the same way. I'm kind of an educator at heart, and just kept doing it and continue to do it today. And it's grown to something like 284,000 subscribers, tens of millions of views. And so it's just the way people learn these days. You know, back in the old day, I'd give presentations, and I actually wrote a book. And so that was the way we kind of differentiated ourselves. But today, as you well know, it's all about the internet and social media, and that's where people's attention is.
You know, I don't mean this to be in any way disrespectful. In some ways, like me, at a much smaller level, like you know, you don't come across as like a Hollywood personality with some particular Brad Pitt-like charisma. You obviously come across intelligent and focused and carrying your topic. And oftentimes people say, well, I'm just not really built for, YouTube. And I say, well, no, you're built for your customers. And this is just a tool to communicate with them. What advice would you give to somebody who's a little nervous, but this is a tool not to build a channel, but a tool to leverage their knowledge with their customers? How would you encourage either a real estate agent or an attorney who, like you, maybe at the end of a year has 7 subscribers? It feels like that it's not really worth the time.
Yeah, great question. And really, I'm a shy guy. If there's a party, I'm the guy who's in the corner, kind of looking at the clock, trying to figure out kind of when I can leave. But yeah, if you've been doing something for a while and you've developed some expertise and you have your own way of explaining things and you make things easy to understand, then you simply just need to grab your iPhone or cell phone and just start. I think that's people just don't get started. And look, acknowledge your first video. If you make a video, it's not going to be very good.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. And mine weren't. But you have something of value that you can share. And there's lots of people out there who would love to have the knowledge that you have and learn from you. And it's just a long game. I would say don't even look at views. Don't look at subscribers. Just focus on how can I provide some value to people. And as long as you do that, there's going to be people who are going to want to watch. It may take a while because the YouTube is crowded, but it's a long game, and it's you almost have to play that game in today's world. I hate to call it a game because it's much more than that, and it's professional. But just number one, get started. Realize it. Number two, realize that you're not going to be perfect. Nobody is when they get started. And then just have patience and keep doing it and don't give up. And that would be my advice.
The hardest part for me is to watch myself. I just hate watching my own videos. And yet
I do not. I don't watch myself.
When I started, I did because I knew I had to get better and get some feedback and improve on things. I would catch things and correct them. But I'll be honest, I haven't watched myself. I don't even know how long. It just hurts.
I'm the same way. Yep, I'm the same way. And And so, yeah, that's okay. And yeah, all my videos for years, they were just a one take headshot. And you know, even if you mess up a little bit, people understand that. Or do it over again if you're not comfortable with the outcome. So, but yeah, it's a great platform. You know, it's a way for people in business for themselves to be able to kind of quote unquote advertising without having to pay for advertising. So that's the beauty of it. It's a free platform.
Well, and actually, I think you end up getting paid for it. At your numbers, you must be. I know I am, even at my level. It's amazing to me. I get a check from you too. I feel like it's a small check. I feel like I'm the richest guy in the world when they're paying me rather than me paying them.
It is crazy. Yep.
Well, for those who are interested, his YouTube channel, America's Estate Planning Lawyers, and it's at America's Estate Planning Law Y 1946. The channel will put the link in the chat box because it's amazing content on various issues as well as with attorneys from around the country. So feel free to join that. And then if you're a family looking for estate planning services, or you're a real estate agent looking to meet with an attorney, I get this question all the time: how do I find an attorney to connect to? Well, here's one who covers. What states do you cover, Paul?
Yeah, we cover about 42 states. It's all about the rules of professional responsibility. Many states say, even though I'm not licensed in Florida, I can help someone in Florida as long as I have a Florida lawyer participate in the process. Some states don't allow that. California is one, so we don't do business in California. California doesn't have that co-counsel rule like other states do. But if you hit the kind of request free video meeting button, you'll get to in fact, you could click it now if you wanted to. You'll get to a screen where it does show what states, up at the top, it shows what states we don't help people with. There's Alabama, Hawaii, Kentucky, Maine, Mississippi, New Mexico, Pennsylvania. California is one we need to add to that list because we recently discovered the rule. But all the other states, we're able to help people.
Fantastic. And so again, if you want more information, go to aeplawyers.com. You can request a link there. And again, if you have families that need estate planning in those states, there's a great service to add. I know we've shared on this channel different online type services, and here's a chance where it's more of a personal, professional approach. I think that's more worthy. So, Paul, again, thank you for your time, your insights on estate planning, and also your insights on building our business. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, Bill. I think there's not enough people taking a little bit of extra time and effort to really understand their state's procedural rules around probate. And I really feel like an agent can be of significant value to their clients by engaging in the probate process, learning the probate process, because it can be frustrating to consumers out there. So love what you're doing, and hope maybe we can chat again sometime.
I'm sure we will. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
You bet.